Hey everyone, and welcome to The Year Was, the podcast all about today that gives you just enough information to effectively be that guy at the party, causing all your friends to question, hey, who invited you? Like, seriously, why are you here? I'm your host, Michael Montalvo. For the next few minutes, we will swim through the river of time to find out what makes it a truly unique. On this episode, we examine the events that occurred September 2nd. We've spoken briefly before on this topic during our Christmas episode, but here it is again in slightly more detail. The Julian calendar was the old calendar system designed by Julius Caesar, and it was used for a very long time, like 16 centuries long. But how did we keep time before this? We used to use, way back, the solar calendar system, which had a seasonal year of 365 1/4 days. The Egyptians were actually the first to use this, and in doing so constructed a 12-month calendar year made up of 12 months with 30 days each, with an extra 5 added to the year's end. Calendar modifications would begin to happen in Rome, first with the Romulan calendar around 753 BCE by Romulus, the first king of Rome. Using the Romulan calendar, which is said this way, just so I can make it sound like Star Trek, the year had 10 months with 30 or 31 days each. Most of these months were named after Roman gods, but other names we're really not sure where they came from. I'm looking at you, Aprilis. In this system, the total number of days wound up being 304, which was a problem because 61 days were missing, and it would not accurately determine seasons. The calendar was modified in 713 BCE, and with it we were given 2 new months and a surprise leap month called Intercalarius. In this calendar, the 2 new months, which included February, then known as Februarius, occurred at the end of the year after December, with the leap month of Intercalarius having 27 days for leap years. This now meant that there were 355 days in a regular year and 377 days in a leap year, which would happen about every other year. While this was an unstable system to measure the passage of time, it was actually used for 700 years. Around 450 BCE, the shift was made to start the calendar year in what is now January from the previous Martius, or March. We still had 13 months, and February had 23 days. Leap years were still an issue, however, and that's when Julius Caesar decided to take action. In 45 BCE, Caesar began to reform the calendar and produce the first stable calendar to that point. He eliminated the leap month and made it a leap day, and the calendar, in its more traditional form, was first seen. As a great man, Dr. Henry Jones Jr. once said, the Latin Jehovah starts with an I, so keeping that in mind, bear with me, I'm going to butcher this. Januarius had 31 days. Februarius had 29 days but 30 in a leap year. Martius had 31 days, Aprilis had 30 days, Maius had 31 days, Junius had 30 days, Quintilis had 31 days, Sextilis had 30 days, September had 31, October 30, November 31, and December 30. The leap year rule here was that every third year would be considered a leap year. After this calendar went into effect, Julius Caesar was murdered on the Ides of March, 44 BCE. Augustus Caesar made a slight modification by giving February 28 days and December 31, as well as renaming some of the months. Quintilis would be named after Julius Caesar, and Sextilis would be named after Augustus himself. So all's good and well, right? Not quite. The thing that happened when this calendar was made was a simple math error. A miscalculation in it meant that the length of the solar year was off by around 11 minutes. Big deal, right? It kind of is. That miscalculation and discrepancy meant that Easter began to fall further and further away from the spring equinox. Another unfortunate side effect was that a leap year happening every 4 years actually made the calendar too long. So, as mentioned in our Christmas episode, in 1582, Pope Gregory XIII introduced the Gregorian calendar. This wound up fixing the Easter discrepancy and also made leap years only occur on years divisible by 4 unless they are also divisible by 100, unless they are divisible by 400. This new system fixed the lag issues that they were facing. But as we all know, these things take time to accept. Many thought it was a Catholic plot to silence other religious movements, but many countries, mostly the Catholic ones, were soon adopting this new system. Things didn't really start moving until Protestant Germany adopted the calendar in 1700 and then England in 1752. And I think that was the most surprising thing I learned from all of this. 24 years before America declared its independence, England was still using the Julian calendar. I guess you just don't really think about these things being that far off or different. The year was 1752, and on this day, September 2nd, England ended their use of the Julian calendar in favor of the new Gregorian calendar. Do you want to hear something cool? On the night of September 2nd, the calendar moved forward 11 days. So when people woke up, it was September 14th. Can you imagine having a birthday on one of those days? If we thought quarantine birthdays are bad, 11 days just vanishing must be so much worse. So, as you would expect, people were reportedly not very happy. It's said that protesters took to the streets to riot and demand their 11 days back, although many historians now believe that this never actually occurred, but if I know people, I think it might have. Benjamin Franklin once poked fun at the whole shift by saying, "It is pleasant for an old man to be able to go to bed on September 2nd and not have to get up until September 14th. An interesting side note to this is that the year before, 1751, actually had a short year, only lasting from March 25th, the then New Year, according to the Julian calendar, to December 31st, for a total of 282 days. While we use this system today, this modern Gregorian calendar is still not perfect. The addition of a leap year shows that we are off on our calculations of the solar year. While it's not as dramatic as the 11 minutes we previously saw, we are currently 23 seconds off. What that basically amounts to is that since the calendar's introduction, we have introduced a discrepancy of a few hours, and by 4909, should we make it that far, the calendar will be 24 hours ahead of the solar year. That's going to do it for us today. If you like this episode and want to hear more, give us a rate and a review. That helps me out and helps steer this in a direction that is hopefully good for all. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can find the Year Was audio version on your podcast app of choice. You can find me on social media and at YouTube at the Apple Cider Club. And as always, I want to thank the Tim Kreitz Band for our musical theme. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.